Welcome to the Giving Town podcast. I'm your host, Danielle Roberts, and my goal is to share stories of hope and generosity in our wonderful community of Newberg. Today, I'm interviewing Brian Love, owner of Crohn's Appliance Service and also the owner of the title Diaper King because of his family's annual diaper drive for a family place. Brian is a well-known role model in this town, and today we get to see a deeper look into who Brian is and why he has such a heart for this town. This podcast is sponsored by my real estate team, the Joyful Roberts Group. We're licensed brokers with Premier Property Group here in town. It really is a joy to serve this community, so if you know someone thinking of making a move, reach out to me, and I'd be happy to help in any way that I can. And with that, let's jump into my conversation with Brian. Well, thank you, Brian, for coming and doing this interview. I'm excited to talk with you today.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here.
So you're a name most people, if they're paying attention, are familiar with in Newberg. Many people have heard about your involvement with Family Place and some other things like the Old Fashion Festival and fireworks and things like that, which we'll get to. But what I'm wanting to do today is to get to know who is Brian Love, kind of what makes you tick, some of the things that are on your heart, especially recently, and just help maybe inspire some people to be. I know you don't like putting yourself on a pedestal or saying, look at me, which is why I'm interviewing you, because that's not who you are. But there's a lot of things about you that I think we can learn from and be inspired from. So I first of all, I guess basic question, what was it like growing up in the Love family?
It was great. My dad passed away when I was 18, so I had a really early wake-up call to adulthood. But there's one thing I did learn from my father, and I share that to everybody, is, he left a very, very good paying Teamster job to come and deliver heating oil in Newberg because his teacher job took him away from family and things that were going on at home, and he didn't want to miss out on the opportunity to watch his kids grow up. So it's always resonated to me that money isn't always the most important part.
Yeah. And was he a pretty major influence in your life?
He was a volunteer fireman as well, and as was my uncle, and just always was willing to help people. And, whether it was one of his fireman friends or one of his old truck driving friends, we were just always, trying to do things. And I think I learned a lot from that gets me to where I'm at.
Yeah. Was your uncle a pretty big influence in your life as well?
My uncle was a large influence, and his name's Al Blodgett, and if anybody's been around Newberg very long, they know Al Blodgett. He was very involved in just about every facet of community activity, I think, in Newberg at some point or another in his life. He recently has passed away, but I probably got, because of his involvement, I followed him, especially after my father had passed, because he still had the thing. But I don't know. It's just hard to explain. But when you're around someone and you see the activities that they're involved, it's like, hey, I could do that. That's something I could do. Doesn't really cost money in a lot of ways, and that's where it goes. But I can't get involved in everything, and I've had other organizations ask me to get involved. And I can't always do it because I believe you only have so much time to give. And if you don't, you can overcommit and not really do anybody justice. Mm-hmm. And so I chose to try to pick and choose what I do. So when I do it, I'm doing it with 100%.
Well, from what I understand, that seems to be the way to do it. And you seem to be effective at what you do. So I guess it's more important to be effective at what you do than effective at everything else. Exactly. So many people know you also as the owner of Crohn's Appliances, but that's not how you got started, is it?
No, not really. Again, my dad had passed away, and several years later, my mom remarried, and it was Carl, the owner. And 2 weeks after they got married, I was delivering appliance for them as an extra job, just to make some extra money at the time. And things go down the road and end up having an opportunity to come on full time and learned the trade and worked until my stepfather opted to retire out at that point, which was 2001. I took the business, the service part of it at that point over and was working out of my garage and have been able to build it back. Back then, Home Depots and Lowe's were hitting the territory pretty heavy, and it was really hard to compete, but it's not even a blink in my eye now because the services, we offer more for service than they ever will. But it's just, it's good to be involved in your community working, and you go into the store and people know you. And, I've recently gotten busy enough that I have 3 great service technicians. I have 9 employees total, and they're all family members as far as I'm concerned. But I have to be in the office a little bit more, but managing it, and I get the calls, it's like, what, you're not coming out? I was like, are you retiring? Well, not really. I'm just trying to manage so my business stays at a level that is acceptable.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned the bigger names like Lowe's and Home Depot, which is what many people think about with appliances. So what do you think has helped you be successful in a community like this when, like you said, that they're trying to hit the territory hard?
Well, as far as those two, retail is the only thing that they would come up against. And I would have to say it was still a challenge back then, but the service side is what bolsters my sales. I mean, you go out, you do the best you can for your customers, and then you hope, that if we can't fix their appliance or something, that they'll shop locally. But I'm not afraid to tell them where else to go look, because for everybody, that the best, mighty dollar has a value no matter where. But I just think in general, our service, the staff, and and for me personally, I saw the overwhelming need to be involved with the community. And to me, that's cheap advertising in a sense. I don't mean it that way, but it, being involved in your community, the festival and all these things, it just keeps getting your name out there. And people go, oh, yeah, I know him, or I know that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all you can ask for, but I enjoy it. So,
yeah. Was that something you feel like you always gravitated to, as being involved in the community, from an example like of your uncle, or do you feel like that's something you learned later?
No, I think it came early on. I just remember, I don't know, I guess a great example is back when I was in junior high, and my dad and my uncle were already in the fire department. I grew up a fireman child, and 2 of my good friends, we were both in junior high together, and the fire department was raising money to get a new rescue truck. And we put together this is back when the CB days were out. So we're on the CB radio saying, hey, we're just garage sale. We had stuff coming from all over. Our garages were full. And we raised enough money over spring break of our, 7th grade year, whatever it was, to actually at that time paint the new rescue truck.
Wow.
So it started a long time ago in little ways or whatever, but it's evolved because, especially getting involved, at least for me, with the fire department when I did, that is volunteer, and you get involved in so many other things when you're involved in the fire department. You're helping these other, the chamber, or all these events and everything. So it sort of gives you an opportunity to see what it's like without being involved, and you can sort of see what else you might want to do.
Yeah. When you did that, what do you feel like that did as a 7th grader, being able to do that and accomplish that?
I think the biggest thing for me was just realizing that anybody could do whatever they want. You just got to be able to figure out how to do it. And it's not always easy. In our case, everybody has a room full of junk they want to get rid of. One person's junk is someone else's treasure. But the reward to say, we made enough money to paint that rescue truck, which was the rescue truck for many years after that. I actually spent, time working on it as well before it got retired. So, it's just, it was just so much learning as to what one person can do or a couple people can do.
Yeah. What are some things that, some of the main lessons you feel like being in business, starting from where you started to where you are now, what are some of the main, I guess, most important lessons you feel like you learned?
I think the biggest one is, and again, it just goes back, is you got to give back to your community. I mean, engage in your community. Not everybody, can do it. And I like helping people. I mean, there's just a reward in it. It doesn't matter. Well, there's people that I do things for. A good example, I guess, is there's one young lady here in town that my uncle knew for a long time, and she struggles. And every once in a while, she needs an appliance, and I just make sure one ends up there. And that's it, almost making my eyes water just thinking about it. But it's those things. It's those things that, but I can do it. I have what it takes to do that. It's not a lot of effort.
Some people are content to, once they go through the business, they see some level of success, to just kind of kick back, take it easy, maybe do some rounds of golf, vacations. But for you, it seems like there's something really special about being able to help someone, and that does something for you, to the point of some pretty deep emotions. So what do you think about that? What do you think makes you realize, hey, this is something that is fulfilling to you, whereas other people maybe don't see that?
I don't know. Especially when you talk about emotions, I wear my heart on my sleeve, I think is the phrase people use. And it's just because, to see someone enjoying something and know that you had a piece of that, that's a good feeling. I mean, it's like, I'm also a director with the St. Paul Rodeo, and somebody, one time I made a comment about, this is my paycheck or something. And they go, what? You get paid for being a director at the St. Paul Rodeo? And I said, yeah, I do. I said, on a sellout crowd, when there's 10,000 people in the stands watching the rodeo, I can look over the gate and I see 10,000 manta rays being made at one time. And I say the same thing for the Old Fashioned Festival. One thing my wife and I do, with a bunch of great volunteers as well, but the parade has been a passion. And you go at the end of the parade and everybody, it's the end of the parade. We're just sort of going through. Here's all these people that had just made memories of this parade, and we had a little bit to do with it. And it's just, I don't know, there's just something that makes you feel good.
Yeah. I think that's important, and recognizing some of what those good feelings are. And I think everyone kind of knows maybe that that's a thing, but yet we still find ourselves chasing money more often than the feelings from helping people. So I think that's a good thing to realize. Another thing that people know you for is Family Place. I know your granddaughter also got on some news recently about that, but how did that get started? What's the story there?
So the backstory there is again, it resonates back to my involvement with the St. Paul Rodeo. And we were approached by Ann Dolan, who used to be a chamber director, or ran the chamber years ago, but she's very involved in the community. And her late husband was a member of the rodeo for years, and actually was on the rodeo board as well, but approached us to sponsor a Family Place. And so they have a luncheon, and we decided to sponsor, and some of us got to go to this luncheon. And at that luncheon, there was a family that came, not the whole family, but I think it was, if I remember correctly, it was the mother and maybe one other family member was there. But the story was told that there was a point where they'd have to make a decision, and their kids would go like all day with one diaper because they didn't have the money to buy more. And so they had to choose, between food or diapers and stuff like that. And I left that luncheon and came back and told my daughter, Laura, who co-runs my office. And I said, we need to do a diaper drive. And that's where it all began. And shared with her what what I just experienced. And, she has kids and she knows the struggles, and she just embraced it and has helped to carry the torch, as all of my employees have since we've done it. They all feel it. It's when you hear that backstory, I mean, you could see people walking down the street or driving down the road, you don't know their backstory. But as soon as you hear backstory, and if it's enough, it gets you, and you want to do something about it, and you do. And that's what we chose to do. And it's been very successful, and very pleased with where it's going. My granddaughter has played a part by donating, instead of toys for her birthday, she wants diapers, and there's several little things that have happened with her that have just make me very proud of her. But at the end of the day, every diaper makes a difference, and it truly does make a difference.
Yeah. So, what does that do for you as a grandpa to see your granddaughter taking back charge?
It brings you right back to the whole emotional part of me. Even with my daughter and just, I didn't ask them. I mean, I didn't really say, you have to do this. They do it on their own. They feel it. I'm just proud that what I have, what drives me, is with them as well in their own way. They don't have to be involved in 5 different things, but if they engage and, commit to doing one, and it makes a big difference. And I don't know, it's just a great feeling to be able to say that, my daughter, my granddaughter, for that matter, even my mother got involved after that at the family place where she goes down, and COVID sort of changed that a little bit, but it's still there. But she would go and help package these diapers for these families that get them. So it's 4 generations, just because I went to a luncheon and heard about a child that had to be in a diaper all day.
Well, that's something I appreciate about you, is you don't blow a trumpet in front of you, just do it, and people see it, and I think that's leadership, of just doing. People follow because they see what it means to you, and they realize it begins to mean something to themselves. And that's what I think is important about you. And there's many people like you in our community who are doing things like this, which is why I'm wanting to get these stories out, because we have a lot to learn of focusing on, well, what does it mean to just do? Not focusing on all the junk that's going on, but just find something you're passionate about and make the difference you can make. And a family place, I got a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old that brings tears to my eyes thinking of, some of those families, what they have to go through. And my last conversation with Emily from there, we just released that podcast a little bit ago, and it's a worthy cause for sure.
The sad part is that's just one thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's people that can't afford food, and and keeping politics out of it, there's still a need, and especially if it includes kids. Kids don't have a choice. They get whatever's delivered to them at the time they're doing it, and it tugs your heartstring really, really, really bad.
Yeah, but you're doing what you can. And that's
absolutely doing what I can.
And something we had talked about a while back when you'd shared, when you guys hosted the Chamber of Commerce greeters meeting, you mentioned this phrase, changing the narrative. And I want to explore that a little bit of what does that phrase mean to you?
Well, I'm from. It's sort of interesting because I like I mentioned, my employees are not, they're family to me. When I hire them, I tell them, I'm not hiring an employee, I'm hiring family. And so I try to be involved with them wherever I can to help them through whatever they're going through. And just had one that was I could just tell he was having a rough day or so. And so I was talking to my wife, Missy, about it. Like a day before, and I really just, I want to be there for him, and sometimes, people get caught. Well, this is how it was. This is how it is for me. And this young man, he's I just see so much potential, and I see him in all of them. But she goes, change the narrative. And that changed the narrative, just lit up in my head, because it's really, is it the cure-all for everything? No. But if people can just change the narrative on how they hear something, or how they say something, or it's just the beginning to making some kind of change to come up with some kind of result for whatever situation you're in.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can't explain it any better than that, I don't think, but it's a very quick phrase that really means a lot.
Yeah. Can you give an example of that? Maybe something that, maybe there's many examples, but can you think of one where that really sticks out, of where maybe as a community, there's a narrative that needs to be changed?
Well, I mean, it's hard to say it that way, because I mean, every situation has its own thing, but you know, we've come off with some very struggling times here in Newberg, still going through some. And at some point, you have to change it and figure out how it's best going to work. You know, do I have that answer? I don't. But if you don't talk about it, if you don't change the narrative, you're just going to have the same conversations over and over. And it's going to take change. It takes change from all sides, no matter what your religion is, or political views, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
You know, everybody has a place, everybody has a purpose.
Yeah.
And whether you believe in that or not, that's your choice. But that doesn't make them to be absolutely the wrong too. And it's changing that narrative to find that place that works.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned a little bit ago about backstory. When you got the backstory of that family and realized what they're going through, what that does is give you empathy, right?
Yep, exactly.
Oh my gosh, and maybe before then, it could have been possible to see someone, see how they're reacting, see how they're, just look at them and make a judgment. And then when you get the backstory, you realize, oh man, I have been so wrong. And even with some of the stuff going on here, taking the humility and honestly asking both sides, and I don't want to get into political stuff, right. Just recognizing, even just giving someone the benefit of the doubt and not buying into, which is just really hard to do, but not buying into, okay, what does one side say? What does the other side say? But if you can say, well, what, is there a potential that there's more to this than I'm seeing, which, is hard to do. But I'd really like that, change the narrative of how can we, and even for Newberg, and what I'm wanting to do here is, hey, there's a lot of hope. There's a lot of really generous people. I mean, the hope, the generosity of our town those are some core things of what make Newberg tick. I think it's important to recognize that. It doesn't mean there's not going to be struggles, that we're not going to have issues.
Change is inevitable.
Yeah.
If you're not willing to make some kind of a change or accept change to a certain standard, that doesn't mean stealing a car is still stealing a car. You don't have to. You don't have to accept that. I'm not saying that, but there's got to be resolved some of the things that create so much separation. Mm-hmm. And until everybody wants to come together and try to figure out just where that is or how it'll be, you're never going to please everybody. That's the so-called truth, but you can't always talk about it the same way too. You have to, keep retooling, I guess. I don't.
Yeah. What would you say to, if you could say one thing to our community at large, what would you feel is important for people to know?
I think for me, growing up here, is just be willing to take the time to figure out what really is the true bottom line to making Newberg great. Mm-hmm. What are the things that are going on? It's so easy to be pulled one way or another for whatever, by what you read or what it is, but spend some time doing it yourself. Go ask the questions or whatever. And there's a lot of good in this community. There's a lot of great organizations, a lot of great people. and there's a lot of them that have been sidelined because it's so overwhelmed with what's been going on that the good has been shadowed by the unfortunate situation.
Yeah. Well, Brian, I wanted to say thank you for everything that you do for our community, for being the example you are, even though that's not your intent to say, like I said, you don't want everyone looking at you, but people look at you. And I think I think I'm inspired by you. And I know that's why I wanted to have this interview with you, because I want to be like another Brian Love as I progress through my career. And it's, it gives me a lot of hope. It gives a lot of people hope just to see what you do. And, at the same time, my encouragement to everyone listening would be find the thing that you're passionate about. It might be a family place. It might be somewhere else. Find something and run with it. Even if it's something small, it's worth it. That's kind of what you found.
Yep.
Is that it's worth it.
Find your niche.
Yeah.
And fulfill it.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Brian, for your time. It was great talking with you.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast, and I hope you're inspired by hearing Brian's story. If you enjoyed this episode, share it on social media or text it to a friend to help share all the good news happening in our town. Again, this podcast is sponsored by my real estate team, the Joyful Roberts Group, and if you reach out, I'd be happy to help you or anyone you know with their real estate needs. Well, thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.